accept, where them hands, where them holes, where them throws, you know what I'm saying?
Well, now, let me just say this. I'm not going to try this ever. I do not think that this would be tolerated from my particular demographic. Not only that, I am in another country than this individual, but I felt like the story was worth mentioning because I know I primarily talk about Taekwondo on this channel, but Judo is a secondary style in the Cecil Taekwondo system or the Cecil martial arts system. And I'm a showdown in Judo, so I feel like I can say something and not be an outsider. Anyway, this really happened. A Judo instructor who hurled police officer to the ground and attacked another trying to pepper spray him as they tried to arrest him for holding free outdoor children's classes during COVID lockdown avoids jail. Daniel Carr, 37, took down two peace officers as they tried to stop his lockdown judo class. He admitted assaulting them, and the judge handed him a 100-day community order. The judge, she praised him for revealing mental health issues after his mother's cancer diagnosis. So this did not take place in the United States. So, in a nutshell, he was having these free judo classes outside during the COVID lockdown to alleviate the frustrations that people were having during COVID back in 2021. It's 37-year-old judoka. And one was about to pepper spray him, and the other one was trying to grab him or something. And he managed to throw one for a pwn and use a temi on the other one, striking. So here's the man in question. Looks like he's in pretty good shape. Apparently, he knows what he's doing if he can take down two police officers with judo. And allow me to be a little snarky and sarcastic here, but I ain't hating. But that's a nice judo throw. Look at that. That's some pretty nice form. Here is Uke's got some nice. Looks like he's got some nice landing technique here. He's got good rotation. Anyway, Daniel Carr, 37, used his judo skills to throw one officer on the ground before striking another officer on the wrist who was about to pepper spray him in February 2021. So they have him pictured here performing a move during a session. So I don't know what pressure point he used on the wrist to strike the man. But I would assume if he's trying to get him to release, he probably struck him right about here. I cannot remember the name of the pressure point. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. Because this is a free video. Carr organized the martial arts at Queen's Park in Haywood. With COVID restrictions in place at the time in February 2021, meant that it was illegal to organize or attend gatherings and meetings with anyone outside your household or support bubble. But prosecutor Craig McGregor said Carr wanted to be able to protest about being able to protest about the COVID regulations. Police became aware on social media about these gatherings, and on February 4th, he received a cease and desist letter which said he can be fined for prohibited behavior. Again, this is the UK, United Kingdom. He was also served with the director from Rochelle Borough Council under the health protection regulations telling him not to have this protest. He said it would help people's health and well-being, and they would have been 2 meters apart, but participants will still have to give each other succor. He was also offering kids martial arts lessons from 1 p.m., but in brackets saying, if I have not been arrested. We are teasing and goading of the officers. He has already been arrested previously and told to go home, and there's an element of the I won't have anyone tell me what to do mentality. Well, yeah, I would say that was pretty obvious. And again, I don't think this would be tolerated from my particular demographic in my particular country. So I'm not going to try this. While this particular judoka in question, Sensei Carr, was able to get away with this, and I'm not going to hate on Sensei Carr, I would suggest that if you are not Sensei Carr, You should not try this. I don't think you will be as fortunate if you are not Sensei car. Now I'm reading here. Let's see. PC Zeb, I guess that's police officer Zeb, deployed his parva spray, but during the scuffle that ensued was punched on his left wrist. He was left with some soreness, tenderness, and swelling. PC Mehmud had slightly more serious injuries, and they both went to Fairfield Hospital. So he also put these peace officers in the hospital. They're saying if he was punched on the wrist, on the left wrist, I'm thinking maybe he was struck here. I forgot the name of this pressure point, but I know you can knuckle and press. I got that from one of my judo teachers. You can get the person to kneel forward by grabbing and pressing right here, using your knuckles in here to pressing here on this wrist. When you're grappling, you can get the person, you can kazushi them forward, off balance them forward. So it says, from the throw, PC Mehmud suffered right shoulder pain and reduced mobility, and there was a soft tissue injury with the x-ray showing there was a puncture to the right lung and a pical, forgive me for butchering this, pneumothorax, but there were no associated rib fractures. Perhaps it was the force with which he was taken to the ground that caused it. Luckily, that punctured lung healed without further medical intervention in a short period of time. So he damaged one guy's lung, but it was only short-term damage. PC Zeb had 2 trips to the hospital and had to take a day off work, was on restricted officer duties for a couple of weeks, which had an effect on the neighborhood police team. This offense was committed against an emergency worker acting in exercise of his functions. Carr spent 10 days in custody following his initial arrest and 261 days on a curfew while on bail, and was originally charged with causing grievous bodily harm. See, again, where I reside, maybe not necessarily in the state that I reside in, but certainly in the country I reside in, I would fear law enforcement deleting me if I were to do something like this. We'll say with projectile weapons that have projectiles made of metal. I'm trying to get around the algorithm. Representing himself, Carr denied throwing a punch at PC Zeb, saying, "My intention that day was to help people struggling with the effects of lockdown, myself among those, and offer free martial arts classes to kids who have been struggling, something I am trained and qualified to do, and something I had been doing for some years before lockdown. I still believe that I was trying to do the right thing, however, maybe in the wrong way. During a very difficult time due to isolation in the news a few weeks earlier that my mother had been diagnosed with cancer, was going through radiotherapy. I wasn't thinking 100% clearly." So I can understand that. I can imagine that when you're going through something like that, that emotion wells up and you may make an error in decision. So he was sentenced by Judge Angela Neild. Here, that's what it says here. Said he gave an excellent speech, and she thinks that his actions were affected by his own mental state at the time. You were understandably distressed at your mother's recent diagnosis, which compounded your own difficulties, and the restrictions that you were struggling with significantly. So it says he had a fine initially. And let's see. So someone else, the director of the neighborhoods for Rochdale Council, said the actions of Mr. Carr were not only a breach of national regulations that were in place at the time, they were also an affront to the majority of people who made great personal sacrifices in order to help protect others from a virus that has claimed the lives of hundreds of people in our borough. Although the risk of transmission were generally considered to be lower outdoors compared to indoors, there were still significant risks of transmission with people congregating in large numbers and being closer than 2 meters from each other. Mr. Carr's actions demonstrated a complete disregard for legislation, and his selfish actions put others at risk. So that's pretty much all of that article. There's another article that pretty much says the same thing. I will link to both of those below. And I've already said my opinion on it. I've said it at least twice. I'll say it again. I'm not going to condemn him, and I'm not going to condone him either. He looks to me like he has pretty good technique. He was actually able to pull off his martial arts under pressure. I'm not going to argue the rights and wrongs because, quite frankly, it's only because I just don't feel like getting into it with internet trolls. But I will say this. I am not going to try something like that with my demographics because I'm not in the same demographic and I'm not in the same nation that he's in. And I wouldn't recommend anyone else try this either. This could just be a case of someone being severely understanding of him because it was an extreme situation. But I would say once this pandemic's over, I got a message. Please don't try that. Just don't. Thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Please share with people like to talk about the martial arts in peace. And as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Peace.